wonderful human being. And I'm going to turn it over to Hope Vespia, who probably knew better than any of us here. Hope?
I've had the privilege of knowing Ann for over 50 years. Her husband and his family lived right next door to my grandparents and my parents. Amba Capisi was considered the most eligible bachelor until he fixed his eyes on Ann, and it was love at first sight. A year later, they were married, and they raised 4 beautiful children. Ann has to be the most caring, lovely, gracious person I have ever met. All the years I've known her, her dedication to the community, to the children of the school, to her family, and to the town of Rye is impeccable, immeasurable. I would often meet with her sometimes for a cup of cappuccino, which she loved, and I would call her and I'd say, Ann, let's go. And she says, oh, I'm working, Hope. Or I'd call her on the weekend, come on, Ann, let's get together. We need to, just have a little time together. And she goes, oh, I'm at the court, I'm working, but I'll meet you later. We set a time because she was so devoted. She was a woman of humility as well. Her children were just super achievers, and I would ask her about them, and she would share things, but she never bragged. She never shared a lot with them, but they were amazing young people. And she sponsored 3 children during her years raising her children that came exchange students. And also a highlight was when there was a child from Indonesia that needed a special surgery and a life-saving surgery, and she nursed that child to health. And these are things that are so unknown, unspoken about her, but I think she should be praised for everything she has done throughout her lifetime. She served on the board of Salvation Army with me, and she was always there ringing the bell or making contributions, and all the majors from former boards have gotten in touch with me, and they miss her terribly. They just remember her for her dedication and her devotion. And the Rotary Club, everything she did, she jumped into it 150%. So I loved my friend, I miss my friend, and I know that the community is still mourning of her loss. And I thank you for this opportunity to pay tribute to Ann.
Thank you, Hope.
You're welcome.
Would anybody else like to speak? If not, thank you all very much. We have a picture of Ann up on the board right now for those of you who would like to fix her smiling face in your memory. Thank you. Debbie, please call the roll.
Clerk, Councilperson Pamela Jaffe.
No, I said Debbie. That's Rye-Town Park Commission on Tuesday, right. Hope.
I'm here. Okay. Councilperson Jill Axelrod. Councilperson Thomas Nardi.
Here.
Councilperson Lindsay Ann Jackson.
Yep.
And Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Yes, thank you. Adoption of minutes for the meeting held June 15th, 2023. If there are no additions, corrections, I have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our first resolution is to extend the Town of Rye caretaker license agreement for Charlie DeLeon. As everybody knows, Charlie is our caretaker, and he occupies the cottage at the end of Crawford Park on Lincoln Avenue. He entered into a 2-year agreement with the town 2 years ago, and has requested an extension, which is provided for in the agreement. So this is a simple extension of the existing agreement. Charlie's duties are set forth as an exhibit, and the original agreement is also set forth. So are there any questions about the item?
Yes, does he get, after this 2 years, does he have another 2-year?
Yeah, he can request it, but it's up to the board
Okay.
to determine. If there are no other questions, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe? Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. We're going to skip the next item because we have a short presentation from Heritage Consultants. The presentation and resolution is to engage Heritage for ground penetrating radar, an unmanned aerial vehicle, high-resolution photogrammetric gravestone surveys of the African American cemetery. Many of you here and watching on TV may have seen the ceremonies at the African American cemetery. We received a grant of $35,450 to conduct this. This is something we've been trying to accomplish for a few years. And as many of you know, the town of Rye has taken on a substantial responsibility to upgrade the African American cemetery, working closely with the Friends of the African American Cemetery and its president, David Thomas, who's been a spearhead and leader in this regard. And anybody who sees the cemetery today and compares it to what it was a number of years ago will notice an immense difference. And speaking of that, we just finished our latest project, spearheaded by our Director of Grounds and Facilities, Vic Federico, and Councilman Tom Nardi, to enhance the drive entrance, which was substantially overgrown, to make it accessible to more people who wish to visit the cemetery. And I thank both of you for that. Without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thanks. So I'll just talk a little bit about.
Introduce yourself.
So my name is David Leslie. I'm a principal investigator and director of archaeological research at Heritage Consultants. And we've been working with the town who, as Gary mentioned, is this going to work if I hit the space? Yeah. Applied for and received a National Park Service grant to conduct this survey. I would also say that this National Park Service grant is highly competitive. I believe this was the only one that was funded in the state of New York and only one of two that was funded in all of the Northeast. So this is a really big accomplishment that the town has done to get the money from the National Park Service too. It's a little bit laggy here. So I'll talk a little bit about what ground penetrating radar is so everybody can understand it. I'll talk a little bit about the low-flying unmanned aerial vehicle survey that is planned at the cemetery, what we can learn by doing that, and then the three-dimensional photography of each of the 160 gravestones in the cemetery as well. So some exciting news. I know that at the Juneteenth celebration, David Thomas mentioned that there is not a known plat map of the cemetery, but one of our historians has found one at the Westchester Clerk's office. And so you can see here, this is a WPA era, a Works Progress Administration era map of the cemetery. It's a low resolution copy. We're going to get a better copy from the clerk's office in the next couple of weeks. This only indicates veterans of the Civil War or World War I in the map, but it's a good starting place. So it's something that we can build with the ground penetrating radar survey and all of the tombstones that are within the cemetery as well that we can coordinate with this plat map. This is just an image of what the cemetery looks like today, and this is an image of the ground penetrating radar machine that we will be using. So the cemetery, as many of you probably know, was established as a burying ground in 1860. And this is that plat map that I was talking about. So I'll talk a little bit about how GPR works. This animation will start so you can see how it works in a minute after I describe the technology. So this is a lot of technical language. It's an active, non-invasive method, which is really important. So by doing this survey, we're not impacting the cemetery whatsoever, right? A lot of ways you can determine where graves are by removing the plow zone and looking at grave shafts, but we don't have to do that with GPR. We can instead use the machine to record the dielectric contrasts of the soils, which is just another way of saying that we're dragging the machine across the surface. It's transmitting the radar, and that's either reflected or absorbed by the sediments within the ground. And then most of these reflections are going to be generated at boundaries. So I've sort of digitized a natural soil with a plow zone, a subsoil, beneath it, and then there's a grave shaft where you can see. And this should start moving, not yet. The next one will start moving. So it's not a soil profile, but it's a proxy for the layers. And you can see the machine is moving across, it's shooting radar down, and this below is the profile that is created. And underneath is that parabolic arch, and that's what the coffins look like in a radargram. But also what's important is that there's these cuts in the stratigraphy here and here, which help us determine where the grave shafts are too. So sometimes coffins have deteriorated and you don't get that strong parabolic arch. But in any case, if we see the cuts with the stratigraphy, that helps us as well. So another way of looking at it is here. And this is just like a little bit of the physics of how it works. So again, we've got the machine scanning the surface. So on the top axis, that's the distance or the number of scans. The left axis is the time in nanoseconds that it takes for the radar to penetrate all the way down and bounce back up. We convert that to depth in meters or feet. And then the speed at which the radar travels through a subsurface material, it changes polarity. Again, all this really means is that when we do it, if you've done it enough, you can see where coffins are. So all of these parabolic arches here are coffins that are rectangular, and then they have this sort of parabolic shape. Obviously, they don't really have a parabolic shape. That's an artifact of the way the machine is collecting the data and anticipating where they are. But it's really important that we can see these clear shapes, because then we can convert those into a map that anybody can see. And I'll show you what those look like in a minute. So an example of another cemetery that our company has done in New York. This is the Vischer Ferry Cemetery in Vischer Ferry, New York. This is a UAV survey or a drone survey that I did at the cemetery here, where you can see all of the headstones. It's a cemetery that was in use from the 18th century to present on the north banks of the Mohawk River. And then this is just another way of seeing what we can learn when we do this UAV survey. So it's really clear where the monuments are, but you can do this bare earth hillshade like a LiDAR map that you've probably seen, where we can also see exactly where the headstones are too. And then we take those profiles from the Vischer Ferry Cemetery, and you can see here, because we've got each of these grids where we're collecting, each of these red rectangles are either marked or unmarked burials that we discovered during this cemetery, as well as a gravel driveway in the bottom that's really highly reflective. So, as I said, there were several marked and unmarked burials that we discovered, and this is what we can expect. This is an animation of depth from the surface moving down when we do the survey at the African American Cemetery. And this is just an example, again, what those individual profiles look like with those parabolic arches. We also have digital photogrammetry plan for each of the headstones. This is a headstone that I chose while we were out for the Juneteenth celebration, just to do a test of how the three-dimensional photography will work. So we use a software to, it's going to skip ahead. So you can see here, these are all angles that I took pictures around this headstone, and that's the three-dimensional model. Underneath, you can't see it very well yet. But these are just still shots of what that three-dimensional model looks like. You can freely rotate it too. But this is really exciting for some of the headstones which might have faded inscriptions. You can look at them this way, or you can do this bare hillshade where you can clearly read the inscriptions if they faded too. So these are just some examples of what we're going to be proposing, or we are proposing to do with this survey. So I'll answer any questions anybody has about the presentation or what we have planned.
Questions? Nobody? Okay.
You're looking to identify burial grounds, but how often do you come across buried gravestones or any kind of identifying?
So
marking?
We go backwards here. So there are a bunch of red rectangles, which are grave shafts and coffins, but there are also yellow ones, which are, I believe, buried headstones too. The manager for, the groundskeeper for the Vischer Ferry Cemetery is currently investigating these areas to go and see if they are buried headstones. He's found a bunch before we got involved, so I'm confident that that's what they are. They're much more reflective than the grave shaft would be, so it's pretty clear that it doesn't have to be a headstone, it could be a big rock or something too. They would look the same. But those should show up very well.
What's the timeline for when you're going to start the radiometric surveying and then basically the intensive research afterwards?
Yeah, so our timeline is sort of dependent on the town. We have openings in our schedule this summer. We just finished a big 4-acre survey in Falmouth, Massachusetts, so I don't have any other big surveys planned in the next month or two. It'll probably take, it's 1.4 acres, so I think it'll take about 6 days or so to do. The headstone scanning will take a little bit longer, but probably all in, we're looking at 2 weeks of survey. It'll take a long time to process all of that data, because, so, I don't know, with 1.4 acres, we're probably looking at about 1,500 or 1,800 individual profile lines that we have to look at each one of those two and stitch them all together. But it'll certainly be completed this summer, early fall. Yeah.
So I've been corresponding with our grants administrator at the National Park Service. There's some additional information I have to get him, and then once he signs off on it, according to the grant literature, and actually there's a edited copy as backup for the resolution today, we should be able to go forward.
Good. So the answer is as soon as possible after we pass a resolution, which I assume we're going to pass.
And this grant, there's no matching funds, correct? Correct. So it's completely funded through, this work is completely funded through the grant.
Yep.
This has been a long time in the waiting to do. I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
You know,
When we,
it takes time, it takes money, I realize that, but I'm glad things are moving along.
yeah, we started to look into ground piercing radar like 3 or 4 years ago, when David really started to, you know, to motivate the whole cemetery upgrade. And this, I think, is the final piece. And other things we're doing is working with the Osborne, which owns the property next door, to you know, prune trees to make it much more attractive, things like that.
And they've
They're
been a big
partner.
help, too. They've
Yeah,
been a real big
they're a
help.
good partner.
Yes.
So, unless there's anything else, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson? And
Yes.
Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Going back to Resolution 4.2, authorizing the town to acquire a new all-electric utility vehicle. This is something that we've been speaking about. This is something that is one of the last steps that we have in making all of our town gardening facilities totally electric, moving away from gas power. And we have a grant for this as well. We had actually put, I think, was it, Debbie, $40,000? How much was in the budget for, we were going to put it for the electric truck,
I believe it was 40. Yeah, we set aside 40.
right? So we set aside $40,000 for the purchase of an electric vehicle. Lo and behold, we got a grant from the federal government, Department of Energy, for $76,000. And we're going to use that to purchase an electric truck, pickup truck, to replace the pickup truck that is not quite so serviceable anymore. And we also have a grant for $15,000 for NYSERDA, from NYSERDA. Debbie, explain what that NYSERDA Clean Energy Community Grant, how did we get that?
If you recall, well, the town's sustainability committee took on the challenge of helping to promote the grid rewards program to our community. We took on a social media campaign and a wide range of communications to encourage people to look into the Grid Rewards program and to sign up. In fact, the town has now signed up as well. And it is a program whereby Con Edison notifies us when there are peak demand days. And if we can reduce our utilization of energy, at the end of the season, we receive a check for some of the savings. So that's the program. It was first rolled out for consumer users and just recently for commercial and municipal users. So we were very successful. We signed up a sufficient number of people, or I would say a sufficient number of people signed up, and the result is that we've been awarded a $15,000 grant for the purpose of purchasing. We had to submit and be approved for what we propose to do with the funds, and it has to be a green project that saves on emissions.
All right, so that's where the $15,000 comes from. And Vic, sitting in the back, has obtained pricing for vehicles, and the list price of the vehicle is $34,609.97, pretty exact, and that includes several additions. But if we purchase by July 31st, we get a discount of over $7,000. So with all of the discounts and the grant, the total outlay for this vehicle of almost $35,000 will be about $12,600, which is a considerable savings on a vehicle that we needed anyway. Have I phrased it correctly?
Yes, you
Vic,
have,
Debbie?
Mr. Supervisor.
I would add in addition that our old Gator is now needing repairs on such a regular basis. It's costing us to keep it in service.
Right.
We
But
really need
but
to
we-
get
We'll
rid
be
of
able
it.
to sell it.
That's the plan.
Right, so we'll save even more money. Okay, excellent. Do you want to say anything, Mr. Federico?
No, actually, Vic Federico, Director of Grounds and Facilities, you pretty much covered it all. They did drop off this UTV for 2 weeks, Greenworks did, and we rode it around. It is street worthy. If, we wanted to put plates on it. They have 3 different settings for speeds. The park speed is no faster than 11 miles an hour. It can reach up to 25 miles an hour, which makes it street worthy.
That's for Tommy.
But it also comes with a plow, as Mr. Supervisor was saying, which means in the wintertime we'll be able to push snow in areas that we can't get with a plow, so it's smaller.
I'm just curious, what kind of warranty comes with it? I know when it goes into commercial, usually the warranties like drop next to nothing.
The warranty, I'm pretty sure, is 3 years, Tom.
Okay, any questions? Anybody? Council members? May I have a motion and a second, please?
I'm sorry. She can move, I'll second.
Oh, I thought you had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you.
No, that's
ready to
okay.
move.
Okay,
So,
we have a motion and a second. Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe?
yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson? And
Yes.
Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Our next resolution is to extend the contract of Millenium Strategies. Millennium is our grant writer, and we have been using them for the last several years, as has the Village of Portchester and the Village of Rybrook and the City of Rye. But I think we were the first. Their contract expired on April 30th, and the proposal is to simply extend that contract at the current rate to the end of the year. We have been advised that there will be an increase next year, but that's not going to affect this extension. And just for the, I know Lindsay was at the park meeting as a commissioner the other night, and we are working with a company called Sea Grant, in addition to working with Save the Sound. And Sea Grant actually provides funds for us or any community to hire and pay for the grant writer. And I think the grant is up to, I think it's a maximum of $10,000, which is more than 50% of the cost of our grant writer. Am I correct, Debbie, with the numbers?
I can't confirm.
Okay. We'll take that as gospel unless somebody else contradicts me.
Amen.
Do we have any comment regarding this resolution?
If we were to use the Sea Grant money to pay for Millennium, would we be limited to the scope of work that Millennium could
No.
perform?
No. No, it would just be going to the grant writer. And they
But
would, I assume they would pay us and we would pay them.
But it wouldn't limit,
Not to my knowledge, no.
okay.
Should we let our residents and taxpayers know what they've gotten for us thus far, including the African American Cemetery and what they have in the works?
Oh goodness, you know something, I didn't come today prepared with a complete list. Certainly the grant that we talked about tonight, that $35,000 grant, that was a Millennium grant. Later in the meeting, we'll be talking, I'll be giving an update on the Otter Creek Bridge, the South Barry Avenue Bridge over Otter Creek project, and that is a grant that was also written by Millennium that is, several $1 million. So we've had some wonderful successes with Millennium, and I have to say that they, as many grants as they bring to our attention, as many grants as we say, yes, write this, I've never heard a complaint, not once. They just write it and submit it.
They also did a lot of administrative work for us during COVID when grant writing wasn't, the state was not accepting grant writing because of COVID. And they administered a lot of the things for us, help us submit for reimbursement from Hurricane, what is it, Ida? And
Ida, Isaias.
Isaias.
And I would also add that they created the direct administrative cost submission for Superstorm Sandy to the tune of nearly $50,000, and that required forensic records going back well into Superstorm Sandy was in 2012, so that was the previous administration.
Yeah, so they've recovered, they write the grants, but they've also recovered money. At this point, the grants are in the millions, so. And I'd also like, I had Debbie attach a memo because we did this at the Parks meeting the other night, but the applications that are being submitted for the CFA, that's consolidated funding application. It's a centralized application process for different areas of the state. We're applying for renovation of the interior of the bathhouse at Rye-Town Park. Most of these are Rye-Town Park. And the estimate is over $850,000 for that. The bathhouse retaining wall, we call it the shower retaining wall because the shower's on it, that's falling down. And that estimate is $467,000. And I think the most exciting of all is the Green Innovation Program. The parking lot at Rye-Town Park, the estimated cost is $2.5 million. The other grants are 50/50. In other words, we have to match 50%. Green parking lot, we only have to match 25%. And we're seeking additional funding for the local match through different sources, through the county, the federal government, et cetera, so that our taxpayers do not have to come up with the full local match. And we have also, especially for the green parking lot, Save the Sound is working with us. They are an influential agency, 501c3, that works on many aspects of the sound, including bringing suit to those municipalities who are not fulfilling their obligations for clean water. But they're going to be working with us to help us obtain the grant, as will all of other local officials from state and county. So
I'd like to
that's
add,
what the
Gary,
program is.
the
Yeah.
Save the Sound will also be providing technical assistance as
Right.
well, so, which could easily be portion of our match as well, in-kind donation.
Right.
I'm sorry, just
Let me just finish. I raised the local match because obviously, for Wright Town Park, both the town and the city have to fund any capital improvements. So anything we save by additional match is beneficial for all of us.
I was just asking because it does sound like they've been very active, and I know this for a fact, they've been very active on behalf of Wright Town Park. Does Wright Town Park share any of the fiscal burden for Millennium? In essence, I know we pay them.
Yes, we share the expenses allocated 50/50.
Okay.
Yeah, they write grants for both the park and the town. Whatever we need to do. Any other questions? If not, motion in a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. The last resolution is to authorize the reappointment of Randi Rabinowitz for a new term on the Board of Assessment Review. Randi her term expires September 30th. She is the representative from Rye Neck, and by agreement with the Village of Mamaroneck, the Board of Assessment Review always contains one member from Rye Neck, which is part of the town of Rye, as you all know. Terms are for 5 years. They are compensated at the annual rate of $2,500, and this has been standard for many, many years. Randi has served admirably, and this will be her second term. And unlike, just to clarify, we have 5 members of the Board of Assessment Review, 2 from Portchester, 2 from Rybrook, and 1 from Rye Neck. And with the Rybrook and Portchester representatives, we have a working agreement, I won't get into the details, whereby the town of Rye and the 2 villages work together to agree on the appointments. Hope knows the details of that. I think it's almost too difficult to explain, but that's how it works. So as far as the Rye Neck appointment, this is the sole appointment of the town of Rye. Any comments or questions?
I have a comment. Just as a lifelong resident of Mamaroneck, I've known Randi for a very long time. She does an amazing job. She is highly knowledgeable about Mamaroneck and the Rye Town area, and we're really lucky to have her on board. So I look forward to supporting this resolution.
Thank you. I'll let you make the motion then.
I will gladly make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Before we go on to the reports, et cetera, I know that there are certain, there are members of the public in the audience. I'll take public comment on items from, that are either on the agenda or not on the agenda. Does anybody wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Randy Sellier. I live in Rhinebeck. And I know that this is going to be discussed, but I live fairly close to the Otter Creek Bridge that's proposed. And I did attend a meeting a couple months ago. And I was just wondering if there was an update on the progress that's being made about that bridge replacement. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie could fill in. Let me just say, we did have a public meeting at the Shore Acres Club, attended by more than 20 residents. Our engineers spoke, HVEA. They are the same firm that completed the reconstruction of the Hillside Avenue Bridge very beautifully, which won an award. Right now, they're working on the design report to submit for our review. At the public meeting, there were a lot of comments as to how the bridge should be constructed, not the technical details, but what it should contain. And the engineers have developed a plan whereby there's a wider sidewalk. People wanted a wide sidewalk. That public comment was taken into effect. Public commented on putting conduits for cable, for electricity, for sewer, et cetera. That is being worked into the design with the caveat that we're not going over budget. The budget, by the way, the grant we received is $4.5 million for that bridge. And I believe it's either a 90 or 95% grant. Debbie, you remember it's 90 or
90.
90% grant. The next step will be to submit the design report to the New York State Department of Transportation, which they will approve, hopefully quickly. And then the final design phase will be entered into, construction plans, obtaining environmental permits, obviously from the DEC, and we, the town board, will do the seeker. And that's it. We think that the bridge will be constructed, actually constructed and completed in 2025. I think, are we planning I don't think, we're trying to avoid the summer season of construction as much as possible because of access to the yacht club, beach club in the area. And that's very heavily traveled, so they're gonna have to work around that. But they're planning on some construction. It depends on if they can construct a temporary bridge on one side to handle traffic. But I think that they're saying 2025 will be the completion of the bridge. And then we'll work on another one. Anything to add, Deb?
No, that pretty much covers it. Other than the fact that we've received an informal request from the Village of Mamaroneck asking us to incorporate a sleeve for a possible future sewer lateral, and I expect a formal request in writing shortly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, reports. Is Charlie here? Is he still in Cornell? Still in Cornell? Charlie is our assessor, and he is learning assessor things at Cornell University. The Crawford report. There is a new format, and if the board does not like it, then you can blame me. okay? Do not blame Camille. We're trying to hone this to be both comprehensive and simple.
Hopefully. I think we made it, though. I think we got where we wanted to be. So I'll start tonight with a report that we had originally done back in April. We talked about possibly doing it on a quarterly basis. It is a report that shows where all of our patrons reside. We have 4 patron categories, being resident, non-resident, nonprofit, and municipal. And those 4 groups in this 18-month period have had 601 events total. And if we look at the residents and we break it down by zip code, there were 310 events for residents, and that's 10573 and Rhinebeck 53. Portchester had 173 events, which is 63% of the events that the residents have had. Rybrook is at 41%, and Rhinebeck is at 3%. Okay, any questions on?
No, I'd just like to make a statement. I know, I happened to catch one of the Portchester meetings, and the statement was made that Crawford Park is only for Rybrook residents. And I just want to say publicly, that's obviously not true, since 63% of the resident events are from Portchester. And I think that's a misconception. Even though the park is physically in Rybrook, it's a town park, and it's used by town residents without discrimination as to municipality, Rybrook, Portchester. There may be some discrimination against Rhinebeck, Lindsay, because it's only 3% of the events. But that's not due to town policy. That's, I think, because some Rhinebeck residents are just not aware of this wonderful facility and that it's available for their use. Am I correct? What do you think, Lindsay? Is that about right?
Yeah, I think we're getting there, though.
We're trying.
We're trying. We still, a lot of people from Rhinebeck have been using the park in the last year and a half, so it's getting out there.
Good. Okay, Camille, I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. Non-residents, 10% of the events, as well as nonprofit organizations, which are also 10% of all of the events. Moving into the municipal category, they are at 29% of the total number of events, Portchester being 55%, Rybrook 21, and we didn't put Rhinebeck in there, but we did include town-wide community programs. And those are the programs that we sponsor here for the community. It's meetings like this that we have, and that is at a 24% usage. Any questions?
Does this also include the school boards as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's the schools, it's the Board of Elections, it's the firemen, it's the scouts. We have a whole list. I'd be more than happy to take you through. But they are here on a regular basis. Okay? And now the next slide, and final slide actually, is just to give everyone an idea of where we are in terms of our budget. As of July 15th, we have had probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 135 events between all of our private events and the classes and sports that we have. And the good news is, Davey, that we have reached our budget. Now these numbers are gross. Our budget was also calculated gross, and we're there. So hopefully we will have a lot more to report towards the end of the year. We are expecting a lot more bookings for the balance of the year. And in terms of where we were last year at this time, it was 198,000. Moving over to the municipals and schools, the fees waived are 235,000. That's approximately 85 events that have taken place this year. And last year we were at 175. The school was using us a lot less last year, so that has made a difference. Any questions on that?
I do not. Council? Questions? And I know you have a last slide.
So, don't forget, we have a lot of events coming up. Tomorrow night, rain or shine, we're gonna have the Black Panther Wakanda Forever Family Movie Night, 8:30. It's gonna be right out front on the Great Lawn. And if anybody had gone around the back of the mansion, you'll see an incredible structure that's in process, and that is the stage for the Portchester Council for the Arts performance of Little Mermaid, which will be next Thursday. There's 2 performances, 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. I think everyone that works in this building can sing every song that they're going to be performing, because we hear them every day, all day. And they are just having a lot of fun. It's really going to be a great show.
How old are the people that are performing
They
mostly?
range from 6 to, I want to say 16.
They always put on
Really, really talented.
they put on a nice show. They always do. And Denise Colangelo does a fantastic job. And it's not just her. Who else is working with them?
Oh, you got me on that one. Wait, let me read it to you. The choreography is Anne Marie Mastro Bernardo and Haley, same last name, and the music director is Cindy Moore.
So they always do a wonderful job, and we are so happy to be able to host them. And you have one more.
I do have one more, and Gil Paris will be back on August the 5th. Gil Paris and Friends, which is a different group than we had earlier this year, but I'm pretty sure it's the same group we had the first time they came. So a lot of wonderful musicians.
Is that the one with that certain baseball player who may or may not appear?
Could be. I
Okay.
can't say for sure, but
We-
good possibility.
We're not allowed to say
No,
for
we're
sure.
not. No, we're not. But I'm sure we'll get a great turnout for that. Just keep our fingers crossed for the weather, because Gil always does a fabulous show.
Gil's a great guitar player.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
a phenomenal guitar player.
And your friend was very good last
Yes.
time. What was his name?
Curtis Winchester.
Curtis
Yeah,
Winchester,
vocals, yes.
graduate of Portchester High School
Yeah.
with
And Marshall,
with Cal-
and Marshall Topol on bass.
with Tommy, his buddy.
Former neighbor of mine.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Okay, that's.
Thank you,
the program
Camille.
report.
Camille. Vic?
Yes.
Back, and I was very sad at the
Oh, my
rain
goodness,
date.
Yes, thank you for
Okay.
saying that, September 8th. They will be
Great.
back. Yeah, everybody was disappointed that we had to do a rain date. But yes, we were able to do that, and we will be promoting the new date very shortly. Thank you for mentioning that. Anything else? No?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Vic?
We have somebody put the slide up for the gardens.
It was up, and now it's disappeared.
had to wake up the computer.
This is another Vic Federico special.
Since I've been here, we've been talking about community gardens, and it's been going back and forth and back and forth. Well, this past year, we had culinary classes with a group called Fiddleheads Culinary School. Throwing an idea back and forth with Renana about farm to table for children. We came up with basically I came up with the idea of container gardens for children so that they can learn how to grow the plants, harvest the plants, nurture the plants, and then bring them to the table and cook them. I keep touching it, it gets bigger and bigger. We've now completed 3 containers out there, which were paid for by the Friends of Crawford Park. through a grant. And it's taken, people are stopping and asking questions. We're going to have another 3 built shortly with a donation from Paraco Fuel. The owner walks this park, loved the idea, and will give $1,000 each year to keep it up, keep the upkeep of it. We've also had a woman contact us about putting a plaque on one of them for her mother. And she talked about also purchasing one of them. So, for a startup, and we still have to see how it goes. I think this is a tremendous idea. And I know the culinary teacher is ready to go, and we have one completed with soil. As you can see in the picture there, there's a gate going in, there's deer netting around the top of it, and each container can be locked. So we're taking care of all the possible animals and people that want to pick tomatoes. So we're in process, and in the fall we're going to start planting shortly, and in the fall the class will start. We will start planting some fall plants, and the children will be harvesting whatever we have with the culinary teacher growing in the gardens. So that's pretty much what I have to say right now.
Vic, thank you. I mean, this was a great idea you had, and I think you deserve all the credit for it. It not only accomplishes a lot of purposes, not only does it provide a learning experience for the children to learn how to grow and provide the food for the cooking class to cook with, it furthers our goal of sustainability. And I think it's wonderful. But I keep asking you one thing: where are my butterflies?
We're getting to that, don't worry.
Good.
I've been in contact with the gentleman.
All right, we're
We're getting
looking
to that.
forward
Yes,
to butterflies in the park.
yes, we're looking at a butterfly garden, so,
We actually have a lot of milkweed that we rescued from the county, so
yes.
Vic takes.
What does that mean,
everything.
rescued from the county?
You want to talk about what you did with that one?
Hold it, is it legal?
Yes, of course. They contacted us.
They contacted us. There were basically small fields of milkweed in, what are they called, the barriers between lanes, and they were going to get mowed down. So they asked if we had staffing in a place to dig this milkweed, which was already an active butterfly garden, and bring it here to Crawford Park and find a home for it here in hopes that we would become a haven for migratory monarchs and other butterflies. And Vic and his team went out at the crack of dawn with shovels on basically a major roadway and dug up milkweed and brought it back and found it a home here.
Great.
So
Thank you,
yeah.
Pam. For those who don't know, watching on TV or video, Pam is our sustainability chair and doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
We have to get this back started again, but these gardens actually are something that the committee was talking about 3 years ago. And actually, Trustee Payan, thank you. You did provide us with a lot of inspiration with the work you did in Portchester. But I love, Vic, that as we're entering a time of potential food insecurity, and we had talked about this with the Westmore News, we're teaching children how to grow their own, which could become a very important life skill. So I really appreciate what you've taken under and turning Crawford really into not only a living environmental space, but a learning space. And it's just, you provide a vital resource for the community.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vic. Dave, finance report? Just submitted? Are we doing okay? Yeah.
receivables report that submitted, the receivables are just under 2.6 as of June 30th. That's usually our goal to get there by year end, so that's the lowest it's been in about 20 years at this time as a percentage of the tax levies. And that's just due to, consistent efforts with collections within REM, in REM properties, and as well as tax collections from the tax receiver's office and all that. So that when our receivables are lower, that gives us the ability to have more cash reserve funds. And with the higher interest rates, we are earning a lot more interest income on our reserves.
Good.
I think it also puts us in a better stead for bonding, correct?
Yeah, our bond rating is very high. It's a double A rating, so it's the highest rating pretty much that we can get for a town of our size.
Mm-hmm.
And that's due to our strong fund balance, which is started the year about, for unrestricted, about 4.5 million, so.
Good. And some credit goes to the town attorney. Dave mentions going after collections. That one of the reasons is that both the tax receiver's office and the town attorney go after unpaid taxes, so that we can achieve that good fund balance. Is Nick on? Do we have a receiver's report? Does he want to?
Nick is here.
Where's?
He's in the,
You said here. I'm looking to see where he's sitting.
he's attending.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Council. Nicholas Mecca, Receiver of Taxes. Being that you mentioned back taxes, it's a good point to bring forward that anyone who owes 2022 taxes, they will become liens on July 31st. So you have 10 days to clean those up, which is very much in your favor, because the property tax lien can affect your borrowing power for interest rates. So you have 10 days. If you do owe 222, please contact us and get it cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Clerk's report is submitted, and I see an item here on the mobile shredder.
The county shredder will be coming to the Village of Portchester parking lot. Also, it's our parking lot, the town of Rye, on Saturday, August 12th, from 10 to 1. And we encourage everyone, all residents that needs shredding to be done, to visit the parking lot during that time.
And it's free.
It's free. Mhm.
And
The county provides that.
yeah, and is it? I believe there's a maximum though. Is it? Can I bring
Well-
38 boxes?
You have to get back in line. Get back there.
I think the limit is 2 boxes or 3 boxes, something like that. We could check it. You could check it out
Yeah,
online.
Right. Yes, they're pretty accommodating according to how many are lined up. It's a great service. And that's all.
It doesn't say on the, you have submitted a, I don't know if you prepared it or the county did, but
The county does
it
offer a lot of
doesn't say how many.
information.
It doesn't say that there is a limit, so let's assume there's no limit. Okay? Okay, comments from the council? Anybody?
We talked about all the goings-on at Crawford Park. I do want to remind people of the wonderful music and happenings that go on at Rytown Park every Tuesday. This past week, I got to see Mojo. They were the local band that played during our Pride Festival, and they came to Rytown Park, and it was just a beautiful night on the sound, listening to music. And so every Tuesday, I believe, through the summer, 7:30, go to Rytown Park for live music. Coming up is, I have to actually look up, next Tuesday's Bookends, so I believe that's classic rock.
Yeah.
And then something exciting that I didn't know if you were going to talk about, Gary, was the commission actually approving for free local resident admission onto the beach Tuesdays through the rest of the summer, plus working with the county to get the Beeline bus to bring residents from Port Chester to Wrighttown Beach. And that's just another thing I thank you for. It came up in conversations many years ago that this actually, you know, that leaders of youth groups in Port Chester are worried that the children who live there don't have enough access to green space, and it's hard to get to the park, and it's hard when you don't have a vehicle, or you don't, and how do you get there safely? So thank you, and thank the commission, and I'm sure Debbie's going to talk about it, but for providing this service to the town.
Yeah, we've been working on that. You know, Wrighttown Park, and I think it's appropriate talking to town council about Wrighttown Park because we own it, first of all, along with the city of Rye. And secondly, if there's any funding deficit or capital expenditure, the town and the city are both responsible to pay that. So we have to keep a sharp eye on finances. On the other hand, we want to make the park accessible for all of our residents. We've worked very hard on physical accessibility in terms of the installation of the ramps, the accessible path, the beach mats that we've put on. We have a sand wheelchair that's going into operation for those who are less able than others. And it's interesting because the beach mats serve a purpose not only for, we think of people who are in wheelchairs, but it also serves a purpose for people who are wheeling baby carriages and strollers, people who are fully abled and are dragging wagons of toys, and also for people who may not be in a wheelchair or a walker, but find it difficult to negotiate the sand. And it provides, you know, older people like, you know, some people we know, who find it easier to walk on the mats than the sand. So it's good all around, and I say that because it's important for all of our town residents to know that the beach is theirs. Physically, it's in the city of Rye, and we know that some people in the city think it's their beach, but it's not. It's our beach, and we have endeavored to make it less expensive, at least on Tuesdays for now. That doesn't mean we can't expand that in the future. And we've spoken to the county, and they've extended the Beeline. And I have to give Debbie credit for that because she was pushing people in the transportation department to get that done. And so they've extended free bus service that had stopped at Playland and now goes to Wrighttown Park as well. So all of those things are good. Thank you, Pam.
Gary, I have the video that we created earlier this week, if you'd like.
Sure, why not?
There's the number 13 bus.
They were getting off. Miss Pam. Nancy. So, I mean, actually, we went to the park and Nancy Barr and Catherine Parker,
The mayors were there.
Mayor Cohn, Mayor Klein. Well, there's a picture. That's at the bus stop in Port Chester near the overpass. You can see everybody. The beach balls, yeah. Catherine Parker brought a boogie board.
The bus was more on time than we were. Honestly, the bus was perfectly on time.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome. While we are on the topic of videos, I have a follow-up from last month's discussion of the CGI produced videos for us about the town of Rye. A question came up with regard to what the letters CGI stand for. I believe Alex Payan suggested it meant computer-generated imagery, and in fact it might, but the name of the company was actually Community Graphics Initiative, CGI. So I wanted to follow up on that. The question of Spanish language translation also came up,
and I'm happy to report that we should have our Spanish language version later this week or early next.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Then motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next meeting is August 20th.